Hey everyone, Sunday night, George Cholis, founder of Agoracom. Welcome to a special Sunday night video. And what I mean by that is we're back together again like Sonny and Cher, and one of us isn't dead. Uh, it's Alan Barry Laboucan and I. Alan is the founder of Alan Barry Reports. All kidding aside, you guys know him for his great analysis. Also been on BNN as a guest analyst in the junior mining space, junior exploration space, and the guy who coined the phrase "the truth machine" because a drill tells you the truth. And what we're here to talk about, by the way, Alan's also CEO of Advanced Gold, AAX on the TSX Venture. We'll talk about that, but what we're really here to talk about tonight is Sokoman Iron, SIC and the TSX Venture Exchange. Some big results on Friday, massive volume. Before I get too far into that, let's just bring Alan in. Alan from Mexico, what's happening? How are you, buddy?
George, thanks for, I like that Sonny and Cher stuff. Thanks for
back again.
Thanks for getting together with me because I think there's some changes in the wind of the junior resource market. Some companies are starting to get some good results, and the stocks aren't too blown out, so they can move. And I got a really hot one for you today, George. They had some big news out on Friday. That's that Sokoman Iron Corp. They're not really looking for iron. It's more of a gold discovery, and it's quite exciting. As you said, traded a lot, was up about 40% on Friday.
And this is why we're talking about. So for everyone at home, I fall into the category of most people watching. I'm not a rock hound. I'm not a geologist. I don't have a deep understanding relative to a lot of people like Alan and others who really know their stuff. So this is helpful because a lot of people at home, Alan, are asking, are these results that great? The first time the stock rocketed 800% to over 40 cents, then came back down. By the way, full disclosure, got to make that. I'm long about 300,000 shares of this company from 15, 16 cents, and something like that. So know that I am not conflicted, but I'm biased, and I want this thing to go to $5 if it can. I'm not saying it's going to get there, but everyone should know we're not doing this as a PSA. Alan, you hold Sokoman as well, right?
I do, George, and I'm kind of curious. I know you bought the 300,000 shares in the stock when I tweeted a post. I don't even remember what tweet I made that got you excited enough. Usually you just ignore me on Twitter. For some reason, you decided to buy a bunch of stock. Why did you do that, George?
I'll tell you why. Two reasons. First, it had made that massive run to the 40, 50 range, and I didn't get in on that. So then when it came back, you tweeted it. I knew this company had some good stuff going on, but we're going to really find out from you what it's got going on. But I looked at the technicals, and the technicals were beautiful at 15, 16 cents. I mean, they were exactly where I want to be when I enter stock. By the way, I looked at the technicals again just before we came on air, ready for takeoff. They're in a beautiful position. So that's why I bought it, because you always know what you're talking about. I know I joke around a lot with you, and I know I try and break your chops, and obviously we have this great relationship, but truth be told, we want to make money. And when you speak, I listen, and when fundamentals are great, technicals line up, it's perfect. So now let's talk about the fundamentals for everyone at home.
Let's do that.
Moosehead project, central Newfoundland, like you said, it's not iron, it's gold. Talk to us. Here's what I want to ask you. For the 98% of the people at home who don't know about these results, how good were they? Because they got assays back on 5 of the 7 holes they've drilled to date. In layman's terms, first, how good are these as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, George, I'm going to get into the news release. Actually, why don't I do that now? I'm going to do a screen share, and I'm going to bring up the screen share here, George, and just I can start blabbing while it's on.
All right, while you're doing that.
No, I got it up. I got it up there. There's my pitch on.
This video brought to you by Advanced Gold. So that was a good little.
Yeah, there you go. This video brought to you by Advanced Gold, silver, gold exploration in Zacatecas, Mexico. But we're here to talk about Sokoman, so I'll get that on the news release. So here's the news, George. And just to put this into context, Sokoman iron cuts 24 meters of 33.56 grams per ton gold at their eastern trend.
Okay, so for a lot of us at home, right? A
Yeah.
lot of us at home, we look at that and we say, okay, those look like pretty good numbers, but it all comes down to it's more than just the numbers, right? It comes down to where it is, you know, all the different factors. So, are we talking Fort Knox? Are we talking cow pasture? Or are we talking something in the middle? Talk to us about what those numbers mean.
Actually, George, you're talking about a project in the about a kilometer from the Trans-Canada Highway. The location is quite exceptional, and the 25 meters is quite exciting. You're not talking about, you know, a meter of 1 ounce per ton gold. That number there is about 25 meters. Can you hear my dogs? They're trying to get into the show.
Yeah, I can hear him. I can hear him. So I'm okay with it. I don't think it's too disruptive. It's funny, but you may want to throw them a bone or something like that.
They'll just start arguing more if I throw them a bone.
Go nuts.
So yeah, George, this is 33 grams. That's 1 ounce per ton. You're looking at $1,200 a ton rock. They got 25 meters. You're not talking about a half a meter. This is a follow-up hole to the previous hole. This is the one, George, that the September 11th one was the one that got everybody excited. So let's put that into context here. I'm going to go back to their news section. And where is that news release? Sokoman, this is the one that got everybody excited. Confirms high-grade Moosehead project, Newfoundland. That was 11 meters of 44 grams. So, yeah, that's a little bit sweeter on the grade side, but it's half the meterage. So you're looking at a much more significant. Now, why that's important, George, I'm going to get back to this news release. And what's important about that is that first hole, you could always say, well, is it a one-hit wonder?
Right, because that happens a lot in this industry, right? There's a one-hit wonder, and then they follow it up, and crickets, and the thing crashes, and no one ever talks about it again.
Exactly. And in Newfoundland and Labrador, out there, that happens a lot. A lot of the deposits out there are kind of poddy. They don't stand together in a big gold system. But
right, because that is an area, to be clear, this isn't Nevada, this isn't Zacatecas, like where Advanced Gold is, where you have all this historical massive mining. This is what the Midas have even referred to as a bit of a barren, you know, it's a barren area. So historically barren gold producing province. So because I want to make sure we bring everything into this. So
yeah, exactly. So what's starting to happen here with this company, George, is I've got now the map up of this North Pond. Originally, you see these extra holes here, George? Well, originally what got the excitement was this one I'm pointing to right now. That's MH1801, 44.96 grams, 11.9. Now, what you want to see, George, when you've got that, well, let's say was a potentially one-hit wonder. Then you want to see them start to step out. The other thing you want to start to understand is when you listen to the guys talking about the project, you want to see them getting a handle on the dip of the deposit. Which direction is it going? And you also, of course, want to see step outs with high grade, which is what.
So for a lot of us at home that don't understand all that, so what does that mean in layman's terms as far as what you're seeing in the map here?
Okay, George. Well, you see, first here you got this little red section here. That's their first 11-meter section. You step over about 20 meters, and you've got another section, 30. That's the big one of Friday, 33.56 of 24 meters. You're not talking about small things here, George. Now they're connecting the dots. This is what it's all about in high grade, George. You want to see continuity along strike. The strike of this deposit is sort of north to south. Here you see this big dark black line, George. That's a fault. That's kind of the direction that the mineralization is going in. Okay? So now they've got this good start with the one hole, potentially could it be a one hole wonder? Now they're stepping out and they keep hitting the high grade. And as they're stepping out along strike, George, they're getting higher grade.
Well, how are the other 5 holes? Because they got drill results back for 5. We know about the big one. How are the other 4?
Well, again, it's continuity of the system. You just want to keep on seeing that high-grade material, George. 9.36 grams per ton over a couple of meters. Now you're getting it stepping out. The other thing that they're starting to be able to understand is the direction of the mineralization. And this is where it gets really exciting. If you follow my cursor, you're going to see up here to a whole different area. Up here, they're drilling and they're getting that visible gold in the samples and in the drill core as well. So now you've got potentially, a significant amount of mineralized zone to continue. But then you've got the potential that it could all be connected up here a kilometer away. Then you've
is that a stretch for now to say it could be connected? Like, is there a ton of work that has to be done, or how are you feeling about it at this stage?
It's too early to say, George. You've got to see more of the drilling along strike to see if the continuity is going to connect these dots. You could be also seeing another situation, George.
Do you need them to be connected? Sorry to interrupt you, but do you need this? Are people playing this? They did do 25 million shares in volume because people are hoping they're connected. It's this massive deposit, which is probably a long shot. Or can you have 2 separate zones like this, 2 separate areas, and you're feeling good about what you're seeing?
Excellent question, George, because when you get this high grade, it doesn't need to be a kilometer long, 100 meters, 150 meters of 40 meter wide vein or sill-like body, flat-lying body. You could have a lot of ounces of gold just in a couple 100 meters. But what's interesting to me, George, is it looks like you've got these series of holes over here. These were all the historical holes. You see all those red dots there?
Yep.
Those are all the historical holes. They drilled about 100 meters of that historical area, and it was pretty low grade. But what's interesting is that maybe what you're seeing is the source of where that gold over in the west is, and the source of this new discovery they call it the Eastern Trend. Now, it's hard to sort of say what's happening here, George, because there's really not a lot of holes. But what is interesting is you've got a fault here that could dislocate some of that zone. And you could have a situation where this zone, and this zone are all coming from the same plumbing system. Did I lose you, George?
Nope, I'm here listening. So I didn't want to interrupt you because So is it too early to say that there's confirmation that both the eastern and western trends are linked?
Well, I mean, I can't say it. I don't think the company's ready to say it yet. But that's what they mentioned in the press release, that the trend is starting to go in that direction. So, again, I think it's a little bit early to make those calls still, George. But, when you're talking about an ounce and a half, 9-10 grams, 278 meters of gold over a half a meter, now you're starting to put together something that could add up to a lot of ounces really fast. You don't need that 1,000 meter step out, but it's pretty encouraging to see a step out where they're seeing the visible gold in the step out holes that you're seeing in that Eastern Trend.
All right, so question for you. Do we know how many more holes they've drilled but don't have the results for yet?
Yeah, actually, I don't know that, George. What's happened is they've got about They're
Because there's
financed
the
up.
press release here says these are assays for 5 of the 7 holes they've drilled to date, which tells me they're drilling more.
Right.
So do we know how many more they're drilling? And
I don't know that, George. I was trying to get Tim Froud, who runs the company, on to chat with him. Hopefully I can get him on next week sometime to ask him those kind of questions. But what I really think is important at this stage in the game, George, I mean, you know me, I'm not really one to get too excited too early. But I have in the past picked a couple companies, Gold Eagle for one, that ultimately got bought out for over $1 billion in Red Lake, Ontario. That's why I used to be on BNN a lot. I was, yeah, and in that case, I picked it on the first hole. And why I picked this one on the first hole is, George, you know, I looked at some of the other data on the company, and it kind of gave me the indication that, you know, you see that kind of grade in your discovery hole, and it's probably not going to be a sort of an accident. Okay. You don't get those.
And the Midas letter said, just to maybe validate what you're saying, I'm reading their last sentence here in one of their articles. There indeed appears to be substantial gold deposits at Moosehead, and the results perhaps assuage concerns that discovery was simply a one-hit wonder. So they're feeling pretty good about it. Well, if they have something great here, let's talk about the potential upside. Because I know the potential downside could be 4 cents if they hit, if they hit cow pasture, and we've seen it happen enough. But right now, what's the market cap of the company? If I'm not mistaken, it's below $25 million, right?
Exactly. Why that, George, is why I'm banging the drums hard right now.
So reasonably speaking, if they don't hit Fort Knox, but they got something really great, what's a market cap number that you could potentially see out of this? I know it's early, but are we talking
100 million or more?
All right, so you're talking from where it is right now for it to be a 4x, which basically takes it to 90 cents.
Yeah, and if
everything goes right and perfect, what does it take to get there?
Well, George, if they keep on, now you'll see this trend that I'm talking about here, this east and west trend. Mm-hmm. Over here is where they drilled a bunch of holes. This is where the new stuff is. And if they keep on stepping out, George, and they keep on hitting what I think they are going, I'm going to get down to another map here that sort of shows you why I think this thing is wide open.
And while you're scrolling to that map, I want to take out a second to thank you for not forcing us to be staring at your face this whole time and showing us maps and drill.
I feel for you, brother. I feel for you. I'm a sweetheart that way. I try to.
By the way, we're feeling good today because the Cowboys won and they're within striking distance of first place.
Well, I'm not going to get too excited yet, buddy. We got a long way to go. Why is my screen? Oh, yeah. Okay. Come on.
You got it there?
Yeah, it never works when you need it to, George. There is I think what we're seeing here is that there's a connection, that there is a geophysical anomaly, and there are some structures that make me believe that maybe that 1,000 meters is connected. And if that happens with these kind of results, George, it's going to go way past 100 million valuation. These things just do not come along very often.
But what we need to know, and it sounds like we don't know yet, is how much more drilling is there left? How much money do they have in the bank to do even more? Like, you're working the drill at Advanced Gold. You know this stuff cold. How much drilling and how much time do you think they'll need before the market can make a determination here? Are they still 50 drill holes away, 10 drill holes away?
No, George, they cashed up on that first discovery hole, and they are into an area where they can pretty much drill throughout the winter. Their plan is to drill to about 2 weeks before Christmas. Then they'll shut down for about 3 or 4 weeks to assess the data, and then let people go off for Christmas, and then they'll be back on to drill more. But they're funded up for like 10, 15, 20,000 meters worth of drilling, George. They can go at it with 2 rigs. They got one up in the north. They got one on the east trend, and they're financed up to just keep pumping away with the holes.
So how many more holes do you think they can actually drill between now and PDAC, for example?
Yeah, they'll be back after they're finished just before Christmas. They'll be back on the property in January, and they'll probably be going right through, until next December sort of thing. They're really well financed up, and Eric Sprott took a big chunk after the big discovery hole. There's some big players. Oh, I forgot the disclosure. I took a full position in the stock as well. Not originally, I picked it as a trade about 3 or 4 weeks ago, George. And on Friday, when I saw those results, I went to a full position, and it's no longer a trading position. I mean, I might look for opportunities where I could get most of my money back, but these things come around so rarely that and there's that's the other thing, George. In business, you always want to be the guy who provides something that's needed. Okay, in the sector right now, the average mine grade has gone down from 5 grams to about 2.5 grams. The average grade of a discovery, when I got in the business, it was 3 to 5 grams. Now it's under a gram. These big discoveries, the reason those numbers are skewed so down is because they're looking for lower grade deposits. These big high grade systems don't come around very often. I think I might have one down here in Nevada, or down here in Zacatecas, Mexico, with my advanced gold, but they're few and far between. And that's why I think it's so crucial. Why you've heard me before bang on the desk, George? This is one I'm banging on the desk bullish about, because I think that this system is big. When you get 45 meters of an ounce, that is not some fluke, George, where the gold is remobilized from the west zone over to the east zone over millions and millions of years. That means there's a big system pumping that high-grade gold into 45 meters, 20 meters. This isn't just some little high-grade system, George.
All right, so I'm going to play devil's advocate. And I hear you on that. And I don't doubt you unless somebody smarter comes along and says you're wrong, but I don't think so. But let's talk about the trading action. Stock rocketed to 30. The first time it rocketed over 40, right? 45, whatever it went to.
60.
Bang. Did it get to 60? Wow, okay. Bang, right back down to 15 cents. Okay, I'm thankful I got to pick it up. But people sold out pretty fast. Then on Friday, the news comes out, it rockets to 30 cents. And then bang, back down and close around 23 or whatever it was. 22, sorry. Which is still a good day, up 40%. So I'm not going to complain because I'm long at 15. It's at 22. I'm up 50%.
On 25% of the float.
So why do you think that's happening? Why do you think it's happening? Is it because George, people just want to take their profit and run, and they're no longer going long?
I'm going to throw this question back to you, because you've been watching closely the weed market and the crypto market. And I'm not as up on the weed stocks and stuff like that. But what I think is happening, George, is we're seeing some of the weed investors coming over to the mining sector with lots of cash, and also this desire to trade like crazy. I mean, I think that this deal picked up a lot of penny traders, penny, 2 pennies. Yeah.
So it brought in new blood. So from the sounds of it, brought in new blood. But then is that old blood saying, I got 30 cents for this stock, I'm bailing out right now?
Actually, no. What I think it is more of, George, is you've got these penny flippers. They buy 100,000, 200, 300, 400,000. They sell it a penny later. They buy it back. They're doing this 10 times a day. I think that what you're seeing here is a lot of penny flippers. But the point I want to make is that these results suggest to me that those penny flippers will be replaced by serious guys like me, like you, like other guys. And then what will happen is the float will tighten up. And as it tightens up, they keep on putting out good results. We've got the potential for some really big moves.
Do we think more news is, by the way, just taking, so everyone knows at home, 52-week high was 58 cents, 52-week low, 3 cents. So there are definitely some people who are taking big hits and maybe, so there's two things happening there. When you got 3, 4, 5 cent holders, if they didn't get out after the first run, they're probably getting out on the Friday run because they're making 5 to 10x depending on where they got in, right? And then you also got a bunch of guys who, if they bought in the 50s, thinking that is, I don't know why people do that. If stock's up 800%, I don't know why, for the life of me, why people would go buy it and run into it. But I guess they're a sucker every minute. So I'm presuming you also have a bunch of people saying, hell to hell with it. I bought at 50, it hit 30. I can get out with a, I don't know, 40% loss. For whatever reason, they panic and don't look at the long term. So that's probably a bit of both, but probably a bit of both things. But let me ask you this: when you talk to serious people in the industry, and have you, if you haven't, tell me you haven't. But when you talk to serious people in the industry, how are they looking at these numbers, and are they giving you the, Alan, I'm buying and I'm staying long on this? I'm staying long because you're long. I like the numbers, and okay, 50% is great, but you're saying this doesn't come along very often, so why not see if we can?
Yeah, no, George.
What are the serious people telling you?
This isn't really a trade to me anymore. This is something that I think, this is a value play for people that want exposure to gold exploration. If you want to be exposed to gold and you want to be exposed to exploration, especially at this valuation, you're making a good decision to pick this one right now.
Well, there are tons of companies that are cheap. Not, actually, I shouldn't say that, but the great ones that are cheap are ridiculously cheap.
It's amazing. You know what, George? You remember John Kaiser and I did that series of shows back in 2015 that we called the Zombie Stock Rescue Mission. We'd go out and we'd look at a bunch of zombie stocks that were trading nothing, that had these terrible valuations, but we would look deeper into the people, the projects, and we found some really great stocks. And I think we're in that kind of scenario now that isn't going to last for very long, George. It didn't last when John and I, it was like a 6 months window at the last half of 2015.
So you think the cheap is here for just a little while longer, and then we're going to start to get real big moves? Well,
then we've also got the seasonality of something that you and I have had a lot of success at in the past, George. When you and I were when I was the chief investment officer at Agoracom, we did a series of shows where that was the probably the most successful tax loss selling show ever. We would pick
3 years in a row, and we make 50, 70, 90, 120% on buying stuff cheap in December and kicking it out by February.
Right, exactly. You will hold on to it for 6-8 weeks, and we're going to do another show coming up on that. But what's happening here is we've got a bit of a seasonality situation. We've got a little bit of softness in the market, lots of fear and loathing out there. But, at the end of the day, George, I've been saying for a while what the industry needs. The industry needs some of these stocks to go out there and find something, and the juniors need to start performing well. This is the kind of stock that I think could help turn the trend, which has been pretty terrible lately.
Well, look, the fault doesn't lie with juniors. Unfortunately, marijuana and blockchain in 2018 just dominated. So, when you got marijuana stocks moving 200% in a few days, 300% in a week, when you got blockchain stocks, look, I had a client go from 5 cents to $2.70, right? And you're talking about in a couple of months. What happens, and this happened in the dot-com days, you have people saying, I don't want to look at slow-moving rock that's been around for a million years. I want to move fast on the new stuff. But I'm telling everybody at home this. That's why Agoracom started a series called All That Glitters Isn't Green, which means we're long-term bullish on marijuana. We're not knocking it. But the values got way ahead of themselves. All the action was there. And what happened was, people abandoned some fantastic companies at ridiculously cheap prices. And that's why I got into Sockman at the end of the day. I said, hey, this thing's back at 15 cents and a market cap of some ridiculous, like $10 million or whatever it was, or $14 million. So I said, you can't really go wrong on this. And there are other ones as well. So we'll save that conversation. But I'm glad we had this one today. Let's continue this with the next one. I want you to give me 2 30-second summaries before we sign off. One is, what are you doing with your Sokoman? And then the second one is, give me a minute on Advanced Gold and why it's so great, and not because you're the CEO, but the kind of results you guys have hit pretty early on. So first, Sokoman, what are you doing, and what's your strategy for the next 30 days?
I'm holding strong. I bought a full position on Friday, and I'm waiting for more news. I'm not interested in selling it down here. I think I'm going to be selling it at a lot higher to sort of recover my cash. And once I do that, then I'm holding on for dear life, George. I think this one could be something we've been looking for a long time on the junior market. High grade, thick intersections. It's very exciting.
And just so everyone knows at home, from my point, I always look at technicals. That's and if you follow my trades, it's well documented.
Well, hold on, George. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You said earlier that the reason that you bought 300,000 shares of the stock on my recommendation on Twitter. And what are you seeing? What are you seeing in the stock now? What are the stochastic? What's the MACD looking like? What's the RSI looking like? What do you see in the stock?
Technicals look fantastic. I don't have it up now because I had it up earlier, but everything was at that perfect stage. Because look, things can be really cheap. Not cheap. You get indicators at a very low number, but if they're flat and inactive, it means something could be cheap and sitting there for 2 years, right? Sokoman, everything. I've got a number of indicators, stochastics, RSI, MACD. I look at a bunch, and they're all curling upwards, and they're still very early in the process. So that's why.
On a MACD, you mean that the zero line would be here, and then it's been way down here, and it's starting that little
curling up. Stochastics, which are good short-term indicators, curling up. RSI, the relative strength indicator, starting to curl up, and it's all very early. Because look, if that stuff, if it's trading at 25 cents right now, and all those are, stochastics over 80, RSI's over 80, I'm starting to sell off. No matter.
It's the end of the trend.
You might believe it, right? I'm selling off and buying, but no, for me, I'm holding A because you love the fundamentals, but B, the technicals. That's a perfect 1-2 punch when you got fundamentals coming from you, loving it. Midas Letter looks like they're loving the fundamentals, and then you got the technicals just starting. For me, that's where you make your monster wins, and you got to ride those. You're like a Bronco. You got to sit on that. And you got to. So I'm staying long. I have no intention of selling whatsoever in the next, unless you tell me some results come out 2 weeks from now and they're terrible and we have to bail, which always is potential. But right now, everything is looking like a rocket ride.
So your technicals are kind of just confirming what I just said. I think that there's a lot more legs in this run.
Oh, yeah. They can't confirm the fundamentals, but they're definitely confirming that this is a lot of runway in front of it. A lot of runway in front of it. It's taxiing right now, but it's put on some thrusters, hasn't taken off, but we're not sitting at the gate and we're not doing that slow taxi. We're really starting to boogie down the runway, and there's a chance the tower might give it the no go and they power down. Always potential, but right now I like what I see a lot.
Yeah,
so I'm not worried about it.
I'm not too worried about that because I see so many catalysts from the drilling that they're doing. They got lots of money. They're going to drill like crazy. We'll have tons of news to look at, so we'll talk about it more in the future.
And give us the 60 seconds on Advance, because listen, everyone should know Advance is a client of Agoracom, an advertising client. We do advertising, marketing, raising awareness. We don't just take on anybody, and we took on Alan because he's got a 15-year track record of integrity and knowledge and knowing what he's doing. And you too had a big run. You too did that 8 cent to 50 cent run, and then came back, got your second set of drill results that look great. Where are you guys at right now, and what should shareholders be looking for out of your company in the next 60 days?
The timing of Sokoman's discovery and ours has been pretty tightly bound there with the trends. I think we were about 4 weeks ahead of them, but they've got a lot more money, and now they're drilling like crazy on their second phase. Where we stand right now, George, is we've recently completed our 7th hole. In those first 7 holes, we found a cluster of 30 epithermal veins. These epithermal vein systems are very, very well understood down here in Mexico. We've only touched the edge of the system. We haven't touched the guts of the system. That's our next goal, which is to get deeper and drill into the guts. And when we drill into the guts, I think that's when we're going to have a whole lot bigger interest in our company. These kind of systems.
And people should know that your area, Zacatecas, there is world renowned for the amount of precious metal it's produced.
10% of the world's silver comes within a 100-mile radius of our project.
And that's elephant country.
Ever, George, ever in the history of mankind.
Yeah, and you've hit some good numbers. You put them out. People have seen them. You know, it's already caused one run, came back, probably because a lot of people want to take these profits. But
it's also there's a lot of fear in the market right now, George, and there's a lot of people that don't understand what we're doing. It's sort of why you and I have always done these shows. You got to go beyond the press release, and people see the action and then they kind of dismiss things or they pay attention to this. But what we're doing is we have a system that may only come along every few hundred years. The last one was beside Fresnillo. There's a cluster of 20 veins. They produced on it since the 1500s. We've now found a cluster of veins, and we're on the edge of the system, and we haven't drilled into the guts of it yet. I'm really excited about drilling into the guts of it.
So everybody at home who's watching, then do 2 things. A, you've got your Sycamore discussion. B, go do your own due diligence on Advanced Gold, AAX. So go to the company's website, look up their drill results because they're very self-explanatory. And get to Agoracom because we actually did a full interview with Alan a little while ago to really discuss his results. Remember, forget about stock price. We don't talk about stock price. We don't tell you whether you should be buying or selling. Do the work. Do the due diligence. Look into what the company does. And that's your job at the end of the day. And Alan's job is to drill and do the best he can for the company. But definitely do that.
My job at AAX is to look after the drilling. My job at
all you can do. You don't want to do. We're not here to promote stock. We're here to promote good companies and the good things that they're doing.
My job at Allenberry Reports is to look at drill holes and understand them. My career that started in 1993 in mining has always been about drilling. I've got something exciting. I think Sokoman has something exciting. Do your homework. These things don't come around very often. There's only a handful of them out there now, but you want to do your homework and take a look at them while the valuations are so crazy cheap.
All right. So on that, you've got your Sokoman. Everyone's got to do your due diligence. I think Alan's going to post this to Agoracom in the. This is going to be posted in the. So ask questions. You can log in with Facebook or LinkedIn. So get some conversation going because it's important, and you want real knowledge. And let's get that conversation going. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Alan, as usual, amazing stuff. We wouldn't know I wouldn't have discovered Sokoman without you. And I appreciate the fact that even though you're a CEO of another company, you've got enough integrity and objectivity to spend 95% of your time talking about Sokoman today. That says a lot about the way you think and the integrity you have. So let's be back shortly to talk about the next round.
Before we close off, George,
yeah, buddy.
I want to tell you there's a reason why I do that. Okay? In one of the first books I ever read about the stock market was written by Peter Lynch, Beating the Street. Okay? Peter Lynch said one of the best things he ever did to find out about a company was to go to their competitors and see how well the competitor understood their competition. And not only did he find stocks to buy because of the opinion of the competition, but he also looked at the competition and said, this guy understands the market. These guys understand what's going on. And he found a lot of his good investments that way. I want to know everything I can about the industry.
That's smart.
I want to know more than everybody else. I want to know more than other CEOs. I want to know more than all the newsletter writers, all the analysts, because, George, that's gold.
And we'll leave it at that, buddy. Thanks for joining us. Awesome. Looking forward to our next video, which will probably be in the next 10 days, 2 weeks, between results coming out of Advance and or results coming out of Sycamore. All the things that are happening, we'll be back. And by the way, Tax Law Selling Show, we'll advertise it long in advance, but look for it to happen somewhere around December the 12th or something like that, somewhere in there, because we want to be ready for the trading the 2 weeks following that in targets. And we love that. It pays for Christmas. Every year that Al and I did it, it paid off Christmas times 2 or 3 because we just found these cheap stocks by working together.
You got it, George. And that's, I'm looking forward to all those shows, and we'll do more. Take care. And I'm going to wrap it up now. Have a good day.
Have a great Sunday, everybody. Pass this around. Make sure you forward it to everybody. Have a great Sunday. And let's see how Sokoman does this week.
Do your homework. Consult with your advisors. And do your homework again. That's the most important advice I could ever give. Do your homework. Understand what you're investing in. Understand the industry. There's a lot of good opportunities out there in mining now. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.